Okay, so in a previous lesson we learned about lists. So let's go ahead and make ourselves a list, and we'll call this one colors, and we'll just throw some colors in here. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. Okay, and those will be the elements of our list. Okay, now we could use something that we haven't seen before called a for loop. So for, and then let's say item in color. Okay, for item in color. And then we'll just go ahead and print that color, or that item from the list in the color. So let's go up and run. Okay, and there's each of the items in our color list. Okay, now you can choose whatever descriptor you want in your for loop to describe what those items are. So if my list was called colors, I could say for color in colors, right? And then print that color. And when we run, right, there's my outputted list of colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. So let's apply this to our Minecraft world. So if we go ahead and make ourselves a sleep timer. So let's sleep for 20 seconds. And we're going to call that function that we did in a previous lesson that pulled the block hits. So we'll say world.events.pull block hits. Okay, and this function, remember, is going to return a list of the coordinates that the sword has hit when we right-click on a block inside of our Minecraft world. It will not record left clicks though, so be careful. Make sure that you're only, when you're testing it out, using the right-click button on your mouse. Okay, so that list is going to be stored as hits. Okay, then let's make a magic wand that is going to replace all the blocks that we hit with melons. So we'll say melon, and that block type is 103. And for hit in hits, right? Okay, then we'll have a colon. Okay, we're going to take our X, Y, and Z, and we're going to get those from the hit list, position X, the hit list, position Y, and then the hit item in that list, position Z. Okay. Now let's set a melon block at that coordinate. So we're going to do world dot set block, and we'll pass in our arguments X, Y, Z, and then our block type will be melon, right, which we assigned last time. So for each hit in the hits list, right, and that list will be generated as we hit blocks for the 20 seconds that the timer is running. Right? Then each one of those is going to be replaced with melon according to the coordinates that were stored in the list. So let's go ahead and run. Okay, we'll come back over to our world, and let's start hitting some blocks. So we'll come over here, and we'll hit some of these. Back down here, hit some of these, and now we've seen the program has stopped running, so we can move our camera zoom out, and there we can see all of the blocks that got replaced with melon. Right? If I fly up, I can see some more. All those blocks that I hit got replaced with melon with my melon magic wand. Okay, so next let's look at something in Python called the range function. So the range function creates a list of integers within certain bounds that we pass. So for instance, if I had a list called a range, and that list was going to hold the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right, with no gaps in them, not skipping any values, then I could also make that list, instead of assigning those one at a time, we'll call this one B range, I can just say range and then 0 to 6. So if you notice when I typed that range, right, this popped up and it tells me my start, I need a start value, which is 0, and then a stop value, and it's going to go up to but not include the stop. Okay, and then I can include a step if I wanted to go by different than ones, like 3s, 9s, whatever. So if I have a range that I want to go from 0 to 6, right, that'll start at 0, it'll go by ones, and fill the list up to but not including 6. So if I were to print for each, we'll call it for item in B range, okay, let's print item. So now when we run, right, we can see there's our list. Starts at 0, increases by ones until we get to our maximum number of 5. Excuse me. Now, if I wanted to create a list that was much larger, right, making it or entering it one at a time would be ridiculous. So if I wanted, for example, to have a list from 0 to 50, and I want to count by 2s, right, then I could go ahead and run that module, right, and there's my list, all the items in my list counting by 2s from 0 up to but not including 50. So notice it stopped at 48. Okay, so one of the things that you can do with this range function is you can use it to create for loops where you previously used while loops. So let's look at an example of a while loop. Count is equal to 1. So while the count is less than 60, okay, we would print that count. Maybe 60 is pretty high. Let's change that while the count is less than 11. Okay, so we'll print the count, and then we would increment the count. So count plus equals 1. And this is going to run. Okay, and there's, oh, I've got a tiny little apostrophe in front of my 11. Interesting. Okay, so we'll clean that up and then run, and there's my output, the numbers 1 through 10. Now, instead of doing this in a while loop, okay, let's comment this out. And let's do the same thing, but with a for loop. So we're going to say for item in range, and we're going to start at 0 and go up to 11, because it'll go up to but not include 11. So 10 would be my last number. And then we're just going to print that item. So now when we run our module, Right, there's our output. Oh, except we're starting at 0. We want to start at 1. So if we run, right, we get the same output as the while loop, the numbers 1 through 10 in order, right? But look how much simpler that is. We don't need a count variable. We don't need to increment the count. We can just have that occur right inside of our for loop using that range function. So here is a program that makes stairs in our Minecraft world, and it's currently using a while loop. Let's see if we can change this to be a for loop instead. So we'll go ahead and comment out this while loop. Okay, and then let's try to do the same thing, but with a for loop. So for item, well, let's call it a step because we're going to make steps. So for step in range, and we wanted to build steps starting at 0 and going up to but not including 10 in the while loop. So we'll do the same thing here in our range. We'll start at 0 up to but not including the 10. Okay, then we're going to do this world.setBlock. That's going to be the same. So we'll copy it and paste it inside of our for loop. And we won't need to increment because this for loop is going to do it for each one. It's going to set a step from the range 0 to 10, not including 10. So let's come back to our world, and we'll come over here on the ground, and let's go ahead and run our module, and then come back to our world. We can back up, and there we can see there's our set of stairs or steps that we just created using the for loop. Okay, let's look at some other things that we can do with lists, some other functions. Okay, so if we have a list called numbers, and we're going to assign that a range from 0 to 10. We'll do 11. Oh, but not 111, just 11. Okay, now if I wanted to print without having a for loop, if I just want to see the contents of that list, I can say print list and then the name of my list. Okay, so I'm going to come up and run that module. Right, and we can see our list is output 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, now if I don't have a 0 there, if I want my list to start at 0 and I just put one number, so numbers range 11. Okay, when we run, notice I get the same list. It starts at 0, goes up to, but does not include 11. So you really only need 2 arguments in your range function to generate a list if you want to not begin at 0. So if I wanted to go from 2 to 10, right, including 10, I would make my range 2 to 11. And then when we run, right, now we see our list starts at 2 and goes up to 10. Okay, if I want to skip numbers, so say I wanted my range to go from 5 to 50, so I'll do 51, and I want it to count by 5s, then I do 3 arguments, right? The first is my starting value, the second is the maximum, but it's non-inclusive, and then the third is the increments that I want to go by when I put those values into my list. So 5, 10, 15, 20, right, and so on, all the way up to 50. I had to include 51 as my maximum in the second argument because 51 would be non-inclusive. So 50 would be the next lowest integer that could be output. Okay, it is also possible to count backwards this way. So if I started at 50, and I wanted to come all the way down to 0, right, I would have a -1 because that'll be non-inclusive. And then I'm going to count by -5s. So we'll go ahead and run. And we can see now my list is starting at 50, counting down by 5s until I get to 0. Okay, there's another function that you can call for reversing a list, and that's going to be the reversed function. So let's make a list called backwards, and we're going to do reverse. And then the name of our list. Okay, and now we'll print that list backwards. So let's go ahead and run. Okay, and now, let's see if I can pull this back so you can see it. Right, now we can see there's our forwards list, well, decreasing increments, and then we reversed it, and now we're incrementing by 5s instead of decrementing by 5s in that list. So if I wanted to do something like a countdown, I could say for item in reversed, and then we're going to have the range go from 0 to 11, so that will count down from 10, and we'll print the item. Okay, then when that for loop finishes, then we can print blast off. Okay, so let's put a sleep timer in so this doesn't happen so fast. So we'll do from time import sleep, and then we'll print the item and we'll sleep for a half of a second. Okay, so let's go ahead and run and watch our countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, blast off. Okay, so adjust that a little bit. So now let's build something fun using what we've learned so far. So, excuse me, let's make a pyramid. So we're going to make our block type equal to 24, right? That is sandstone. And we'll make the height of our pyramid be 10 blocks. And then how many levels we want in our pyramid, let's grab that a range using our height. So this range is going to go from 0 up to, but not including 10. So we'd have a list in levels of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, now we'll grab the player's position. So position equals world.player.getTilePosition. And we'll assign those values x, y, z to position x, position y, and position z. Okay, now we'll need our for loop. So for each level in the list levels, let's go ahead and set a block for our pyramid. Okay, so set blocks. And we're going to build this pyramid layer by layer, starting at the base, going up to our top layer. So we'll have our x position, our player's x position, minus the level. We'll have the same y position as our player, but our z is going to be also minus the level. Okay, that's where we'll start the front left corner. Then we're going to go to the back upper right corner. So that's going to be x plus the level, then the same y value, and then z plus the level. And then lastly, we need our block type. Okay, then let's, when we go to the next level, increase our Y value by 1 so that our layers stack 1 block each as we go up. So let's test what we have so far. Okay, and we'll come back over to our world and we'll back up so we can get away from it. And we can see we've got our pyramid, but it's upside down, right? As we look down, my pyramid is upside down. So to fix this, we're going to need to use the reversed function on our levels. So for level in, and then let's change levels to be the reversed so that our pyramid gets built right side up instead of upside down. So let's come back to our world and we'll journey over here a little bit so our pyramids don't end up right on top of each other. Okay, and then so that I don't build this right on top of myself, I think I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and put a sleep timer in here so I can get away. So let's go to, here we'll do sleep 5 seconds. Okay, so let's go ahead and run. And we'll come back to our world, and now I can get out of the way so I don't mess up my position here. And then we'll turn and we can see there's my giant pyramid. Right, we'll back up a little bit so we can see it a little better. And there's our pyramid that we built, right, that goes up 9 levels. All right, next let's look at how to loop over a dictionary. So let's say we have a list of items in our game inventory. So we've got gems, and our quantity of gems is 5. Right? We have potions, and our quantity of potions, colon there, is 2. Okay, then we've got boxes, and that quantity is 1. Okay, so I could say for each key in my inventory, right, we're going to print that key. So let's go ahead and run. Okay, and there we can see our gems. Oops. See, our gems, our potions, and our boxes, right, output. Okay, I could output not just my keys, but the whole thing if I concatenate. So I'm going to do key plus. And then notice my items are integers, right, and I can only concatenate with strings. So I'm going to cast those integers as strings, and I'll say inventory that has the index of the key. So the first time key is going to be 0, right? So it's going to print gems and 5 because that's my element index 0. Then it's going to do 1 for potions and 2, and then boxes and 1. So we'll go ahead and run. Well, unexpected something. I think I have too many spaces here. Let's try that again. Unexpected EOF when parsing. Oh, I need another parenthesis. There we go. Okay, so there's my gems, there's my potions, and there's my boxes. Now, notice how those are right up against each other. It might be helpful to concatenate a space in there, right, to separate them. And I could even make that a colon in between so that they show up like they do in my dictionary. So we'll run that again, right? And there's my gems inventory, my potions, and my boxes. Okay, so now let's look at a for else loop. So if I have, excuse me, my for each key in the inventory, okay, then I could say else, and then print this is the end of the inventory. Okay, so we'll go up and run. Okay, and there's my output. Now this behaves just the same as if I didn't have that else there, right? If I had tabbed, oops, Control Z, tabbed this over, so it's outside of the for loop, right? That would produce the same output as having the else, right? We can see that those outputs are the same, okay? But the else is important when you need to break out of a loop based on a condition. So for example, let's say we have a list of sandwich ingredients. So our list will include bread, butter, tuna, lettuce, mayonnaise. Okay, so there's our list of sandwich ingredients. Now we'll say if ingredient in sandwich, or for ingredient in sandwich. So for ingredient in sandwich. So we're going to loop through each of those ingredients, and we'll say if that ingredient equals mayo. Okay, then we're going to print I hate mayo. So thanks. Okay, and we're going to break out of the loop, right? We're not going to continue to loop through any other items. So let's actually move mayo away from the end of the list. Well, maybe we'll change this actually to, we'll just change this to tuna. So we'll say I hate tuna. That way it'll break right in the middle of looping through our list. Okay. Now we'll have an else, and we'll say print that ingredient. Okay, then we'll have an else for our for loop, and that'll say print this is the end of the sandwich. Okay, so when we run it with tuna inside of our list, okay, notice it just says it looked at the bread, it looked at the butter, it found tuna and said, I hate tuna, no thanks, and it never says this is the end of the sandwich, right? That's because that statement is the else for looping through all the ingredients in that list. If we break the loop, that gets us entirely out of the loop, and it brings us all the way down here, right? It's not going to acknowledge this else at the end. Okay, now if I replace tuna with turkey, okay, now when we run, right, we've got our bread, butter, turkey, lettuce, mayo. This is the end of the sandwich. Okay, if I wouldn't have had this else here, it would always print this is the end of the sandwich, right? So I need that else so that if I break out of the loop, excuse me, that print statement never occurs.